I haven't got enough to live on. And if they're destroying my radio shows, which MUFON did, that's destroying an effort that I have trying to make some money from disclosing my 15 chapters on my website, the StargateChronicles.com. So I'm poor. I'm very poor, and I am terrible pain right now.
Did we go to the moon, Clark?
We went to the moon. Anyone that says we did not are foolish morons. Okay? We went to the moon. I knew the men that went there. James Irwin was one of my best friends. He was a very holy man. He looked for the lost Ark of the Covenant. No, the lost Ark on Mount Ararat, okay? He was deeply involved in his religious pursuits and everything else. I am not religious as far as religion is concerned. I am a celestial. Actually, every person on Earth, other than the black race, are celestials. And the black race were no doubt created here too, way back beyond in history, far back than I can even say. And they were actually the original owners of the planet Earth. They were the first race here. Came out of the oceans, got arms and legs, started to walk, stood up on 2 feet. That's the original race of humans on Earth. The others are star races from different planets. One is the Aryan planet of Aldebaran in the Hyades star constellation. That star has a large planet around it. And their ships are traveling here now. Their ships are the size of Jupiter, okay? I know this sounds totally crazy, but that's the size they are. Now, on the 12th of this month, I being an astronomer, I watched a net presentation from the University of Montreal saying that again, we have a strange object just outside the border of the rays of the sun, and it was sucking energy off the sun. Now, I'll tell you why. The sun is electrical in nature. It's not atomic. The sun is electrical, so it was sucking the electrical energy away from our sun to refuel its Jupiter-sized spacecraft. This sounds nuts, and most people will call me a nutball. So I can't tell it to people because they're already idiots.
Okay, but if there are craft, there are beings.
Okay, people have asked me about, I call them vehicles, okay?
Right.
Now, I did not call them objects. That was too neuter for me.
Okay.
I had a Stanford professor said you ought to call them objects. No. They have all of the qualities of a vehicle. Mm-hmm. They can move. They're just like a missile or anything like that. So that much we can say about them, for sure.
Okay.
So I'm calling it a vehicle.
Okay.
Okay, somebody comes along and says, well, now where would you manufacture one that's 2.5 Earth lengths long? And that's a hard question to answer.
So are you not positing the idea that those vehicles contain, beings who are, maybe like us?
Yeah, I only go along with government images. And if you want to know about people kind of thing, there is the ship that picked up the Voyager capsule at Alameda Naval Shipyard, and they have a picture there of I think it's the Apollo flight that Bugs and Neil were on. But anyway, there is one image there that shows black people getting off.
So people with dark skin getting off.
Not dark, black.
Black skin.
Really black. Yeah.
Were they tall?
Yes.
Very tall?
Yeah.
How tall? Do you know?
Well, they got out the doorway. I don't know how high that is, but
Well, what?
it's safe. 7 feet would be probably a conservative estimate.
Have you heard about Clark McClellan's statement about that?
No,
Oh, you haven't? Have you ever been in touch with him?
no.
No?
There is one image there that shows black people getting off.
So people with dark skin getting off.
Not dark, black.
Black skin.
Really black. Yeah.
Were they tall?
Yes.
Very tall?
Yeah.
How tall? Do you know?
Well, they got out the doorway. I don't know how high that is, but
Well, what?
it's safe. 7 feet would be probably a conservative estimate.
I stopped in usually to buy coffee and make a small chit-chat with the young lady who would ring me up. She was from Ethiopia, and I never really said much, just, how you doing? It looks like it's going to be a nice day today. But this particular morning I was in there, it was really, really different. And something was telling me, tell her about your sister's experience of going to Mars and being told that black people dominate that planet. And I said, okay, I don't want to do this. I was like, I don't know her that well. I don't know what she's going to think of me, and she's going to think I'm crazy. And I just didn't feel comfortable doing that because she was virtually a stranger with the exception of just, making small chit-chat when I saw her each morning. But it was unrelenting. It would not stop. And so I just gave in because the feeling was so powerful and so overwhelming and so unrelenting. So I just blurted it all out, and she said, she didn't bat an eye. She said, oh yes, that's true. It's in our history books back in Ethiopia. Our ancestors came from the planet Mars. As a matter of fact, I could have my mother send for my history book back in Ethiopia for you to see. I couldn't read Ethiopian, but I was like, what? I had to have her repeat it. I was just really, really shocked. I couldn't believe it. But she repeated it. I heard it correctly. So a few months passed by. I went to a lady who had an African dress shop in an area of Dallas called Wynwood Village. And she was older than the first young lady, and this woman, the older woman, was from Nigeria. So I thought, well, let me pose this question to her and this scenario, see what kind of feedback she can give me. She's older and elder. She might be able to really enlighten me on this subject, and indeed she did. I told her the same story about my sister's experience of going to Mars and what she was told, and she said, yes, this is true. Our ancestors came from the planet Mars, and they settled in what they call Africa to mine the gold because it was most plentifully found there. But because of the influence of Islam and Christianity, all that had been suppressed and went underground. She said you could not talk about these things anymore as both of these religions emerged on the continent. So she said if you go into some of the villages today and talk to some of the elders, you can still see shrines to this very day dedicated to our ancestors from the planet Mars.
That's amazing.
Oh, George, I tell you, it was so amazing. I felt like Alex Haley. You remember the movie and the book Roots, when he goes back and traces his ancestry to Africa? But I was now being told of an ancestry that went beyond our planet, that all the way reached to another planet. And it was just so phenomenal. And I felt like, this is, I'm getting a link to a galactic family that we've never had before. And it made me realize how successful the slave traders had been in cutting off all our knowledge of our history and our knowledge of ourselves and our religions and our culture and everything, because all of this she was telling me was what was passed down through oral traditions in Africa. And she said, but if you talk to young people in Africa today, they don't know this. She said because they are either Muslim or Christian, and that is not a part of the origin story.
What?
He didn't know where Elijah came from because he didn't have a mother or father and didn't want to tell you about man incarnating on the planet Earth. So they said he's a Teshbite. And then they tried to look up Teshbite, it became a place. They thought about Melchizedek. They didn't know what he was, the way he came from. He said he had neither mother nor father, no beginning of that. We don't know who he is, but he had to be a man. You follow that? Because they cannot deal with the fact that we are incarnation. Incarnate means we came from someplace else. The star Sirius out there that they talk about in the Beta star constellation is where we're looking up.